Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. I'm Bella, I'm Miss Loftus's intern, and I'm going to be doing the Let's Try problems from lesson 1.6, which is covering relations. And so I just included some of the important vocabulary that you went over. And so this is the information regarding the first Let's Try. So we're going to be using ordered pairs to fill out tables, graphs, and use mapping. So problem 1a is telling us to express these ordered pairs as a table, graph, and through mapping. And so basically we're going to just start with the table because it's the easiest, you're most familiar with it, and we're going to take the x values and the y values and just plug them in and write them down in their allocated column. So we're going to start with the first ordered pair, which is 4, -3. We see that the 4 is in the x position and the -3 is in the y, so you go 4, -3. And you're going to do this for the second one, which would be 3, 2. Third is -4, 1. Third one is 0, 3, -3. 0, -3. So these are ordered pairs, but as a table, I'm going to move this over so it's more clear. And so we have this table filled out, and that's going to make it easier for us to graph because these tell us how many places we need to plot in order to plot our points. That was very convoluted, sorry. But we're going to move on to our graph and use this to help us fill it out. So basically, with the graph, we're going to start with the first ordered pair set, which is 4, -3. We're going to move over right 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then down 3, 1, 2, 3. So we're right here, and you can see how that table just makes it a little bit easier to read. And then we're going to label it because labeling helps us not get confused in the future when things get more complex. So next one is 3, 2. So you do the 1, 2, 3, and then up 2, and that's your second point. I'm just going to do the rest without talking that much because it's pretty straightforward once you have these first ones. 4, 1, or -4, 1. Be careful with your negatives. I usually slip up with that and it always makes it so much harder. Down 3. Because when it says 0, it just means you're not moving left or right 0. I did that backwards. And you're just going to stay on this y-axis, so you're at 0, -3. I'm just going to clean this up so you can reference it in case you need help. So here are our points, and then we can move on to mapping. And so mapping is probably what you're least familiar with. I definitely struggled with it when I first was learning it, so don't get frustrated or anything. So we're just going to start with our first ordered pair again, and we're going to put the domain, which is x, and the range y. So the x value would be 4, and the y value would be -3. The second ordered pair, 3, 2, so 3, 2. Third ordered pair, we have -4, 1, and then the fourth ordered pair is tricky. The 0 is fine because there's no other 0, but because there's already a -3 under the range, we don't actually need to write it twice. We can just draw 2 lines to that one -3. So we would be pointing the 4 here and the 0 here because both of their y values are -3. And so we have those two, and then we see 3, 2, so we drag the little 3 over to the 2, and the 4, -4, 1. So basically mapping is connecting your x value to your y value based on the ordered pair. You basically draw an arrow connecting them. So we're going to determine the domain and range, and we know that domain means x and range means y. And so we can just start by drawing our brackets, which mine are ridiculously messy, I'm sorry. And we're going to start, I like going using the graph. I think it makes things easier, and I like doing it left to right because that's how you read graphs. It makes things simpler. It goes from least to greatest, and so we're going to start with this first x value right here is -4. Then we move over again, we're at 0. Move over again, we're at 3. Move over again, we're at 4. And those are all of our x values. Now range is our y values. And so I like going top to bottom because again it goes from least to greatest. And so we start at our lowest level, which is -3, where we have 2 points. Then you go up again, you're at 1 right here. And then here you're at 2. So those are our y values that we have. So this is the first page of Let's Try It. It's not very neat, that's my bad. But here are the basic answers. And yeah, I'm going to move on. Okay, so this is Let's Try It for section 2 is discussing the independent and dependent variables for each relationship. So we're going to be looking and reading this, and I'm just going to annotate a bit. The air pressure inside a tire increases with the temperature. So we know that the two variables are the air pressure and the temperature, because those are the things we can measure. We don't really need to know that it's inside a tire, but it's useful to know that it's increasing, and the thing that's really the key here is with the, because that means that the air pressure is doing it because of the temperature. That's there. The air pressure is doing it because of the temperature, because it says with the. Basically, it's telling us that if the temperature increases, the air pressure increases as well. And because the air pressure is so dependent on the temperature to change, we know that's the dependent variable. So we have air pressure, and we have temperature. I'm just going to abbreviate that for speed. So that is our first problem. You can write out as a sentence. I'm just doing this as a shorthand so we can keep it moving. And so 2b, as the amount of rain decreases, so does the water level of the river. And so our two variables are the amount of rain and the water level. And so the amount of rain decreases, but so does the water level. And now if you think about this, rain is what fills the river, and therefore it's the thing that is causing the water level to decrease. Basically, if there's less rain, there's less water in the river. And so that tells us that the water level is the dependent. It's dependent on the amount of rain, so we have water level. And that means the independent is the amount of rain. And the best way to understand, the best way to understand which is the dependent and the independent is if you were to think about it. For example, the amount of gas in your tank versus the amount of miles you drive. The amount of miles you drive is based on how far you're driving, but the amount of gas in your tank changes with how far you drive, meaning the amount of gas in your tank is dependent on the distance you drive. So that would mean that the gas was dependent on the mileage, which is the independent. And so you just have to kind of think of them in real life scenarios, and it makes it a lot easier. Okay, so we're moving on to the third. Let's try it. This one is describe what is happening in each graph. And so it gives us these graphs with very vague titles, time and distance, and time and income. And so we kind of have to make our own narrative for what it means, but it's pretty straightforward because we know that because this is driving to school, it's probably the distance distance away from school, or the distance towards school. That does not look very neat. The distance towards school. And then this is time in a linear fashion, so this could be over the course of an hour, over the course of 20 minutes, we don't know. But what we can tell is because how steep this part of the graph is, we can tell that it's going pretty fast because it's taking a shorter amount of time to go a pretty far distance. And then we see here it flatlines, so that means we're stopped. And then as you move on, it gets a little bit slower and the line flattens out because it takes longer to move a short distance. So let's say there was traffic. Here's another stop, and here's another pretty slow drive over a long period of time and a short distance. And so we could see the total difference of like that versus that. That means it's taking longer and it's less distance. So in this graph, I'm just going to write a little narrative. You leave your house, which is the origin right here would be your house because you haven't gone anywhere and it's been no time. That's a really bad house. So you leave your house without any traffic and you're going fast. But you hit a stoplight, which is this first initial stop here. And then you run into traffic. And then are stopped again. And this is a total run-on sentence, but I'm just doing it quickly. You're still in traffic. It's going slow. Continue. Okay. You leave. Let me get rid of all these lines because I am not a neat person when it comes to this. So in this graph, you leave your house without any traffic, but you hit a stoplight and run into traffic. And then are stopped again and continue going slowly. This isn't perfect, but it kind of gets the idea across that you were going fast, you stopped, then you go slow, then you stop, then you go slow again. So the next one is talking about income. And so this is your income, which is the amount of money you're making, and then time. So it's another linear thing. This is totally independent because time passes regularly. Income depends on the time. Okay. So we see that it's steady right here. We're doing fine. Then we have like a little bonus where it goes up quickly. And then you're still going steady. And then there's a stop in income right here. So that is just showing us that it's not steady. There's something that happened that made it different. But then you go back to being steady and on your regular trajectory. So how we can explain this is that shows a steady income. With a slight bonus and then we see more steady growth. I'm just going to start writing with like that as a shorthand. And then we see this spot where there is no increase in income. It goes flat and the time keeps moving, so you can tell that the person wasn't getting paid during this time. So we can say, or I'll do followed by, because that's more linear. So just saying an unpaid leave indicates that they weren't making any income at this time. And then they go back to steady growth. That was bad, Kate. All right. So these aren't perfect explanations, but they get the idea across. So yeah, thank you for listening. I'm going to try to make these shorter in the future. I'm just trying to get used to it right now. So that's all, and I hope you have a good day. Bye.